Hey everyone, this is Jeff Arrow, founder of the Catholic Educational Apostolate from the Abbey, and I want to welcome you to the second episode of My Inner Abbey, the webcast that focuses on practical strategies for spiritual growth. In the public courtyard today, we are going to be discussing your feedback and also answering the question, why do we tend to feel closest to God when things go wrong during bad times and forget about Him in the good times? And of course, we'll also talk about what to do about that. Then we're going to visit the entryway today as our main lesson and talk about this room in your inner abbey that, that tells us that we need to bring order into our chaotic lives as a necessary foundation for the rest of our spiritual growth. We also have a relevant resource to review. Actually, we'll have two of them. And of course, we'll discuss whatever you want along the way. So let's get started. So of course we're just getting started with My Inner Abbey and the social groups on Facebook and on Google+. And there were a couple of comments that I wanted just to point out about the feedback that we received in those two venues and also by email. And thank you for all of those who gave us comments and feedback. It's very, very helpful. One thing was that I had quite a few people apologize for missing the live episode and saying that they would catch the replay. And I just want to make sure that you know that that will always be an option for you, that we will always have the replay available. It may not always be timely because it does take a little bit of work to get that out, but I will try to get it out within 24 hours of the webcast. We'll see if I can live up to that promise. The other thing that I wanted to point out as far as the comments that we've been getting is a lot of people, when I asked the question on the social media sites, what is your greatest challenge in the area of spiritual growth? And a lot of people said, actually a few people said that they were their own worst challenge, their own worst enemy. That's a great answer, and that's a great starting point for us. The fact that we can recognize that we get in the way of the Holy Spirit working in our lives, that we get in the way of grace. So I want to just commend you, those of you who told me that on the social media sites and by email, and to tell you that you're in the right place, that's exactly where we all are, including me. That's why I created From the Abbey. I wanted this to be a place where people who are our own worst obstacle can figure out why we get in our own way, and we can take practical, strategic steps to stop getting in the way of grace, to start cooperating with grace instead. That's exactly what From the Abbey is about. So thank you for those comments. And I'm going to leave that question up for another week. Toward the end of this week, I might post a new one. But if you haven't had a chance to get to those social media sites, this is where you want to go to both answer the question that I post every week and also to post your own questions that we can answer on the air. So the Facebook site is facebook.com/fromtheabbey. This is a fan page. So please be sure to like the fan page and get involved in the discussion there. And if you're a Google Plus person instead of a Facebook person, Google Plus community is up and live. All you have to do is go to the Google Plus community tab and search for My Inner Abbey, and it'll come right up. And if you are both Facebook and Google+, please feel free to be a member of both of those groups. Again, the questions that I post will be exactly the same, but you'll get a different mix of answers from the different people in each of those groups. So please do choose one of those communities to be part of and to answer the question that I post in order to keep the discussion going. And also, please be sure to post your own questions, because I really do want this to be a program that answers your question. So the question that we want to cover today is something that came from the Facebook appeal for questions before my inner Abbey started. And this comes from the same person that posted last week's question, not out of any favoritism, but just because this question was really relevant to, again, relevant to what I wanted to get across in this episode. And Mia's question was, I find myself closest to God when I'm having a really bad day. Why is that? Why can't I feel that same closeness when I'm having a good day? It's like I forget about him, and I don't want to do that. Now, there are a number of reasons that we do focus on God during hard times and tend to, unfortunately, neglect him during good times. And many of these reasons point us to the areas of spiritual growth that we really need to work on. And that these are actually the areas of spiritual growth that we will discuss in the From the Abbey's programs. So let's take a look at a few of these. And for each of these reasons that I state for us focusing on God only during bad times when we need his help, relates to a particular room of your inner Abbey, and I'll tell you which room that is as we go here. So our relationship with God is often weak because we are weak at relationships. Most of us assume that relationships are a whim of fate. Our friends and our loved ones are placed into our lives by God or by accident. Our relationships strengthen and weaken due to time and distance and shared interests, most of which we consider out of our control. And we're just along for the ride. That's how most of us see our relationships. That's how we see falling in love, for example, just something that happens to us. We tend to see friendship the same way. But the truth is that relationship building really needs to be a planned, deliberate part of our personal growth. Many of us find this out in marriage. We find this out when we start to grow distant from our spouse and we suddenly realize that we need to take steps to build the relationship. And so we go for marriage enrichment programs or we go to counseling and we get this kind of strategic help. If we leave our relationships up to fate, our selfish human nature is going to take over. And we'll seek out our relationships selfishly. And our relationship with God is no different. Selfishness spells the death of any relationship. And it is especially true with our relationship with God. So relationship building is the subject of the cafeteria in your inner Abbey, which deals with relationships and communities. The cafeteria is a place, even in the most secluded, cloistered religious order, the cafeteria is a place of fellowship. It may be, the meals may be eaten in silence, yet they're eaten together. And that cafeteria, that place where food is shared, is also a place where hearts are shared. So that's why I chose the cafeteria of your inner Abbey to represent building relationships. The second problem that we run into that causes us to seek out God during times that we need his help and not seek him out during times that are good, that we tend to forget about him when things go well for us, is that we have a mistaken idea about prayer. And that mistaken idea about prayer influences our ideas about God. There's an old Latin principle, lex orandi, lex credendi, which translates to the law of prayer is the law of belief. In other words, prayer is our passport to intimacy with God. If we get our prayer wrong, we can warp our understanding of who God is. That's what happens to us here. Okay, so show of hands. How many of us spend most of our prayer time asking God for stuff? We spend most of our prayer time praying for the things that we need or for the things that our loved ones need. Most of us do, including me. While it's good to ask God for what we need, there's nothing wrong with that. To pray prayers of petition for ourselves and intercession for others, this shouldn't be the main focus of our prayer. When it is, we tend to treat God like a big old Santa Claus, and the bringer of good things. And we tend to treat prayer like a magical incantation. We say, "My will be done." And this is one of the messages of the Lord's Prayer when Jesus teaches us to pray. We ask God only for our daily bread. We rely on Him to give us what we need that day, but only after we give Him glory. Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And after we assert that the center of our lives is on God's will and not our own. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. So when Jesus teaches us to ask and it shall be given to us, He is assuming that we're following His formula for prayer, that we have acknowledged God as the great one, the Lord of the universe, and that we have put our will at the service of God's will. And so when we pray this way, when we pray, thy kingdom come, and then we ask for what we need, God will answer His prayer in His will and not in ours. And when we pray that way, we change our vision of God. We no longer see God as the great Santa Claus. We see Him instead as the loving Father, the person that we want a relationship with first. We need to change our conception of prayer and also the way we pray so that we see our relationship with God as primary in our lives, and we stop seeing Him as our fairy godfather. Having a proper understanding of prayer is a big part of the chapel of your inner Abbey. For many of us, and I would include myself in this, our inconsistent relationship with God is a sign that we have not truly internalized our relationship with God. We may look like we are living the life of faith on the outside, but on the inside, we're not really in a relationship. The virtues of faith, hope, and charity are weak within us. Now, the bad news is that this shows in us a weakness of character. The good news is that, like all of the areas of our inner Abbey, this isn't just part of who we are. It's not something that's out of our control. We can control our character. We can strengthen it and become better people. And one powerful way that we do this is to cooperate with grace in order to strengthen virtues in our lives. Virtues is a word that we don't hear much anymore, and that's a real shame because it's powerful. Now, I say cooperate with grace because we need to know, first of all, that we cannot do this alone. God always calls us to conversion and then empowers us to it. But then, after He does that, we need to do our part. Wait a minute, though. Isn't faith a gift? How can I say that we need to strengthen hope and charity? These three virtues, called the theological virtues, the virtues that directly work to give us a relationship with God, are gifts. They're given to us in baptism when most of us are infants, when we couldn't have done anything to deserve them. And they're empowered during confirmation, another sacrament that is a gift that we really don't do anything to earn. But they're gifts in the same way that our physical muscles are a gift from God. We wouldn't have a body, let alone muscles, if God hadn't given them to us, right? But once we have them, it's up to us to use them and to strengthen them. Otherwise, we become like me, kind of weak and flabby. I'm working on that. But the theological virtues are the same as a muscle. We need to exercise them. We need to strengthen them. Otherwise, our relationship with God becomes weak and flabby, and we begin only to seek Him out when we need something from Him. Strengthening our character, and specifically our virtues, is the subject of the crypt of the saints in our inner Abbey. Now, every Abbey has a crypt where the great saints and heroes of that Abbey are interred, they're laid to rest. And those saints that are kept in the crypt very typically are there because they've shown some great virtue. They've shown that they've followed Jesus' plan for their life in a very special way. And if you ever take a tour of an abbey, oftentimes they'll tell you the stories of a few of the people in the crypt and tell you what virtues those people lived. So these are the people that we want to imitate in our own journey of faith, the saints. So we go to the crypt of the saints to reflect on the lives of these great people, the virtues that they had, not just to say good for them, but so that we can imitate them and begin to live those virtues in our life. So the crypt of the saints is the room that we're talking of your inner abbey that we're talking about here. Now, often difficulties and challenges in life remind us that God is there, right? I mean, there's a reason that we focus on God during the hard times, because suddenly we know we can't do it alone. And so we turn to Him for help. This is a good thing, okay? So don't get too down on yourself if you are one of those people, and we all do this, I'm sure, I know that I do, who only seeks God or mostly seeks God out during the times that we need Him the most. Because at least it shows that we see God as somebody to turn to, as the source of goodness, as the source of our power, when we have run out of power on our own. But there's another thing that this really points us to, and that's the fact that we are distracted. Our busyness and the chaos that constantly surrounds us keeps us from thinking about God until we need Him. This is one area for which we really get good at making excuses. We tell ourselves that, oh, I'll focus more on my faith once things settle down. You know, maybe after I retire. But this is usually a lie that we tell ourselves, right? I mean, retirement proves to be just as busy. In fact, both my wife and I have retired parents now, and they both tell us that they don't know how they ever had time to work because they're so busy right now. Now, the danger of this is that faith becomes just another thing we do. God never really takes center stage in our soul. And then we tell ourselves, but God understands, right? Well, does Scripture tell us that God understands? Well, it tells us that God is jealous of our love. It tells us that He wants to write His law on our hearts. It tells us that He desires obedience rather than sacrifice, relationship more than ritual. He tells us to love as He loved, giving up everything for the sake of the love of God and obedience to God and for the love of other humans. And Jesus also calls us to be perfect as our Heavenly Father is perfect. I don't know, does that sound like God is okay being treated like an afterthought? Making God the central focus of our lives, putting Him in the center of our heart, is a subject of the entryway of your inner abbey. And this is the room that we're discussing today. And you can see why this would be part of the entryway. I mean, this is the first thing we really should do, is make the decision, make the choice to put God at the center of our lives. So let's review the 4 strategies for spiritual growth that come from this question. Again, the whole webcast is about having practical strategies that we can actually put into practice. So you'll find these strategies in the show notes if you go to the link that I will provide for you by email. And again, if you're not signed up to receive those emails, be sure you get signed up at my-inner-abbey.com. And I'll be showing that link to you again at the end of the show. So here are the 4 strategies that we come away with from answering this question. Number 1, become deliberate in building all of our relationships. Not just our relationship with God, all of our relationships. Number 2, adjusting our attitude toward prayer, away from just asking for what we want, toward having communion with God, having a real relationship with Him. Number 3, strengthening our virtues of faith, hope, and charity, the virtues that give us a relationship with God. Number 4, focusing our lives on God and bringing order to our chaos. Well, that brings us to the end of the public courtyard section. So I want to pause now and find out what questions you have. Those of you who are attending live, if you have any questions, if you would please put them in the chat, and we will just pause here for about 3 minutes So if you need to take a little break, this is a great time to do it. But I would also appreciate if anybody could give me questions or at least some feedback to make sure that my microphone is on, since the green room didn't have anybody in it this time, so I couldn't do a sound check. So if you could at least put a link in, let me know how things are going. If you're finding this interesting, I'm sorry, put a comment in, not a link. Put a comment in and let me know if this is good for you so far, and if you're hearing me okay, or if you have any questions. I would love to be able to answer your questions. Okay, thank you again for those of you who are putting responses in the chat. Glad to know that you're hearing everything and finding this a good episode. Barbara asks for some specific strategies, which I always like to hear, for how to put God first in our busy lives. And sounds like she has the challenge there with 9 children, ages 22 down to 5. God bless you. That's awesome. And you know, it's having a lot of children, I'm sure, makes life busy, but we all have busyness in our lives, and we all have our own reasons for being busy. And the next section of the webinar is actually going to be about exactly that. We're going to talk about some specific strategies for conquering the chaos in our lives and getting God at the center. Now, this is just the beginning, okay? What I'm sharing with you right now is really an introduction to this topic. And we will be talking about a lot more in this webcast, also in the social sites on Facebook and Google+. And also, I have written a number of articles about this, and just a reminder that I am creating a course on this that is actually going to be a step-by-step about how to do this. It'll lead you by the hand, step-by-step, how to make God the center of your life, how to be able to focus your life on what's more important. And as we go through that course together, I will be doing the exercises with you, because this is something I can know intellectually, but my wife will tell you this, she's listening right now, it's not something I've mastered myself. And so as I said in the first episode, this really is a journey that I'm taking with you. I want to make God the center of my life. I struggle to do it too. But I have some strategies that I think we will all find really powerful. I've been putting them in place in my life with some great success, but it takes time. I'm at the beginning of this journey. So again, this is a part of the webcast where we visit 1 or 2 rooms of your inner Abbey, and we discuss the specific areas of spirituality represented by that room. And in this webcast episode, we want to talk about the entryway. The entryway is the place where we can make ready to greet Jesus. It's the area of preparation before the work of actual relationship can begin. In our spiritual life, this means adopting the right attitude toward God and toward our faith life. This is something that is very popular among motivational speakers and success coaches, is that attitude has to come before the action. And while I personally think a lot of those coaches spend too much time on attitude, probably because they can give you fluff and make you pay for it. That's a little cynicism there. But I do think that spending a little bit of time with attitude is really important. If we have the wrong attitude, we're not going to be motivated to make the changes that we need to make. So the proper attitude toward God means bringing order to our lives so that we can have more power to choose what is truly important. More power to choose what we do with our lives, more power in the end to orient our lives toward God. It means choosing the path of our lives it means choosing the path that our lives will take and making faith a major part of that path. It means making the love of God our life's focus and living as members of God's family and living our mission. In theological terms, all of these things are found in the virtue of prudence. This virtue is considered by the spiritual masters, by many spiritual masters, as the prerequisite of spiritual growth. It's sometimes called the mother of all virtues, although there are a couple of mothers of all virtues if you read different spiritual masters. But our challenge is that our work lives often work against this virtue. Our daily lives often work against this virtue. Most of us would claim that our lives are busy. Too often that means that doing all of those things that deepen our relationship with God, daily prayer, Bible study, learning our faith, having fellowship with other Christians, serving others in love, are incredibly difficult. It also often means that those things that enrich our lives and our character, like enriching our friendships, growing in virtue, get put on the back burner of our lives. And that's bad enough. But for many of us, we'd have to go beyond the typical analysis that our lives are busy. And we'd have to admit that they're often downright chaotic. Now, I've been taking some lessons in marketing, and I do have a point with this. Every lesson that I listen to begins with a warning about how overloaded everyone is with stimulation. Too many emails, advertisements at every turn, noise, noise, noise everywhere. And any new message trying to get across, that we try to get across to people, is hopelessly lost. That sounds pretty accurate, doesn't it? Unfortunately, most of these marketing classes that I take recommend finding ways to shout louder and add to the chaos. But prudence would tell us to find ways to cut the chaos. You see, there are a lot of problems that come from chaos. Now, I'm not just talking about busyness. I'm talking about when that busyness takes over. And when that happens, that can cause a lot of problems. I'm not just talking about high blood pressure and acid reflux either, though of course stress can do that to you too. For one thing, chaos causes us to play the victim. Chaos makes us feel out of control. While it's true that many things in life are beyond our control, chaos makes us forget that God wants us to control parts of our life. He made us for freedom. And free will is part of what makes human beings the image of God. That's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about freedom to become who God calls us to be. If we lose the belief that we can control elements of our life and that we have choices, then we're more likely to fall victim to habitual sin. We're more likely to become obsessively attached to pleasure and physical desire. We're more likely to make any changes, we're less likely to make any changes for the better in our lives, or make changes in our character for the better. You can see where this is going, right? The belief that we can and should be in control, to be free to choose the better way that God has planned for us, is fundamental to spiritual growth. Spiritual growth won't just happen for us. We need to choose it. We need to cooperate with grace and to work for it. Now, we already mentioned being free to improve our relationships and our character. We mentioned that when we talked about the question for the public courtyard. We also need to take control of our time and energy, of our moral life, our prayer and our devotional life, and our growth in love and virtue. We come to see most of these things as beyond our control. We think you either have these things or you don't. We look at the saints and say, they're lucky or they're blessed. Some people are just born that way. But no, that's not true. Every single one of these areas of our lives is within our control. And not only that, but God wants us to be in control of them so that we can be free to have a relationship with Him. Okay, so that's the problem. And that's the problem that Barbara mentions in her comment in the chat. It's the problem that we all experience, I think. So what are some strategies that can help us to overcome it? Well, first we need to realize that part of busyness is natural to human life. We always claim that we're busy, but what would be the alternative? To not do anything? Human beings need to be active. We need to be growing. God made us creatures that develop and grow, and that means doing something, right? When we feel too busy, we're really feeling a lack of control over how we use our time. So the first strategy is not to measure your busyness with how many things you're doing. This is something I fall into all the time. I look at my to-do list and I say, oh, I have so many things on my to-do list. I'm so busy. Really, though, what we should be focusing on isn't how many things we have available for us to do, but how much we are free to choose what we spend our time on. Now, sometimes it doesn't seem like we can be free because we have great responsibilities. A mother with young children at home, or a father, as I was, with young children at home, really has very little choice about how we use time, right? need to give our time to the young ones who need us as parents. And yet that is a choice. In fact, that's a great choice. It's the choice to live our vocation. So maybe part of this first strategy is to get rid of some of the guilt for being so busy, especially if we're busy with the things that are the most important, with our family, with the things of God. But with that said, I want to come back to the main point, and that is we really need to reflect on what is reducing our choice. And if there are things that reduce our choice that can be gotten rid of, then we need to take the steps to do that. Maybe I should say that should be gotten rid of. Then we need to take the steps to do that. So that brings us to the next strategy, which is the need to recognize that much of our lives are under our control. Now, I just talked about this quite a bit, but this really is a strategy. If we would just exercise our free will, we could really take control of a lot of our lives. So are you too busy? Are you feeling you're restricted? Know that you can choose what you spend your time on to some degree, and sometimes to a great degree. Are you getting distant in your relationships? Know that there are strategies for cultivating friendship that will build any relationship. You can apply strategies for cultivating friendship to your marriage and to your parenting as well. We have the power to choose, and realizing that is empowering. And the best way to exercise for this free choice, the third strategy, is to approach these areas of our life with strategy. There are powerful strategies for time management, for establishing habits and nurturing relationships that can help us to make a lot of progress in all of these areas. These three steps are an important part of the virtue of prudence. Prudence is the virtue of knowing what is truly good for us and making a plan to get it. Let me say that again. Prudence is the virtue of knowing what is truly good for us and making a plan to get it. Prudence is the virtue that can bring order to our chaotic lives and orient us towards spiritual growth. It's an important virtue that we will be discussing a lot more in this webcast and future episodes, and also in the Keys to Spiritual Growth courses, especially the one on the entryway, which is going to be called Planning for Grace. Okay, so I know that those might be a little bit broad as far as strategies go, but again, this is an introduction to the topic, and we will be getting more specific as we move on, and I will be sharing resources with you as well. And again, I did write a whole series of articles on this, and in this episode later on, I'm going to share a great resource with you that talks about this idea of taking control of your time and your energy and your personal resources. Before we do that, my question for you now is, what areas of your life are most hectic? Right now in your life, what areas would you like to learn more about applying the virtue of prudence? So as we move forward and we begin to talk about more specific strategies, where should we go? What areas should we talk about? Maybe it's your time. You feel too busy and out of control with your time. Maybe it's your energy. You never feel you have enough energy to get through the day, or maybe you're even on the verge of burnout. Maybe it's relationships. You want to know how to stay close and engaged with your friends and your loved ones. You want to know those strategies for building relationship. Maybe it's personal development. You want to work harder on becoming the person that God created you to be, to grow in virtue, to build your character. Or maybe it's some other area of life that I haven't even thought of. Okay, so please feel free to share anything. Please let me know again in the chat box. And again, as always, feel free to put any other questions or comments that you have in there as well. And I'm going to pause here and wait for the questions and comments to come in on chat. And this question, your answers to this question, will help to shape the future episodes and the future focuses from the Abbey in general. So please do answer these questions. And if you are listening to this recorded, this question will appear in the social areas on Facebook and Google+. So you'll have a chance as well to answer this question. Okay, so far it looks like we have 2 votes for kind of time management kind of things, which is really what the entryway is all about, and we have 1 vote for relationships, and we'll see how this goes in the public, Google Plus and Facebook as well. Those of you who are interested in time management and getting your life in order, the course that I'm going to be creating on the entryway called Planning for Grace is actually going to be offered to you as a live course. So we would do it like we're doing now as a webinar, so that I can really teach you what you want to know. I'll teach you the strategies that I learned, but I will also listen to what you want to learn about, and I'll do the research and form the course around your needs. And that I think we can do that, within the next month or so. So Barbara's asking on the chat when that's coming out. That's really kind of up to when I get enough interest, and so far I've been getting quite a bit of interest. So because it's going to be a live course, we could really do that in any time. I would like to give it a month or so to try to get more people involved. The more people involved, the better course it will be. Then what I'll do with that is take our webinars and I'll formalize them into a studio course. I have a little studio where I actually create the courses that will be a little bit more polished, based on what you wanted to learn, based on what we talk about in the webinar. And those people who come in on that live course would get access to that studio course as well. And that's lifetime access, so you'd have that forever. And you'd get it at a reduced price because you're helping me build it. So if that's of interest to you, stay tuned, and we'll continue talking about that here in this webcast. This will probably be the main way that I will invite people. I'll also send out email invites and that kind of thing. But I think that would be really great to have you guys on board to help me build that course and make that as good as it can be. So stay tuned for that. So thank you for your comments. Again, if you have more, keep them coming. There is a delay with with Google Hangouts between what I say and when you hear it, and therefore between when I ask for responses and when I get them in chat. I think the pause that I'm putting in here is a pretty good length, but if I miss your chat response, it's not because I'm not interested. I'm still keeping my eye on it as we go. But right now, I'd like to move on to the bookstore. The bookstore is this segment of the webcast where I will share with you a resource or two that is relevant to what we're studying. And in the bookstore today, I do have 2 resources to share with you. One is a book that you can purchase from mycatholicbooksandmedia.com, which is from the Abbey's bookstore. And the other is a free resource that can help you conquer the chaos in your inbox. Now, that resource won't be for everyone, and I'll explain that, but it is a really a great find if it does fit your needs and fit your the way that you receive your email. So the book that I have for you today is a book called Margin by Dr. Richard Swenson. This isn't the cover photo. This is just a photo that I found, but this photo really exemplifies the idea of margin. I'm going to freak you all out, though, by taking control of your browser a little bit through the magic of Google Hangouts. I know this freaks some people out, including my wonderful wife. But I'm going to open a tab in your browser, if I can find the right, here it is, and that will take you to the page on the bookstore for that book called Margin by Dr. Richard Swenson. Now, it's important to have strategies for conquering the chaos in our lives. That was the third point that I made in the entryway section of the webinar, of the webcast. We can't just say, oh, I'm too busy, I need to use my time better. Oh, you can't see that slide yet. I need to put that up there. There we go. Okay. Let me start that part over. It's important to have strategies for conquering the chaos in our lives. We can't just say that we're too busy and hope that our life will calm down at some point. And the concept of margin is really a powerful strategy for managing both our time and our energy. Dr. Swenson is a Christian author, and he's an author of a number of books on this concept called margin. And I don't know if he coined the term margin or if he just teaches about it, but he really has mastered it. And he took up the cause of teaching this because he's also a medical doctor, and he saw how overload, as he calls it, was damaging the health of his patients. Now, overload is more than just busyness. It's more than just stress. It kind of encapsulates both of those. Margin is the measure of not just time, but the energy and the social resources and all of your personal resources that we have left after all of our demands have been met at the end of the day. So if you have margin, that means that you have time and energy and personal resources left over to handle anything unexpected that might come your way, or to add to your day something that's enriching and meaningful. You're not exhausted and frustrated. If you lack margin, which most of us do, including me, you're in a state that he calls overload. Not only do you not have anything left at the end of your day, you might not even have enough time, energy, personal resources to meet your daily demands. Now, the reason that I find the concept of margin so useful is that it places in the forefront the fact that we have control. In fact, Dr. Swenson recommends we stop using the term busyness, because busyness has come with the baggage of the idea that it's just something that happens to us, that it's a condition of life that, oh, everybody's busy, I'm busy, there's nothing I can do about it. Rather, he wants us to start using the idea of margin and overload, because margin is something that we can create in our lives. We create margin either by decreasing our load, allowing fewer demands to lay claim to us, or by increasing our resources. This is a great balance. This concept is a great balance, because I have heard some really great Christian mothers who kind of poo-poo the idea, can I say that in a live webcast, poo-poo? Who poo-poo the idea of taking time for yourself. And they're right in that the culture tells us that it's all about me, right? That we need to take time to pamper ourselves. And yet, we know that if we burn ourselves out, if we give ourselves to our family without taking some time to build margin, if we give ourselves to our job without putting up some boundaries so that we can have margin at the end of the day, we don't do anybody any good. We don't have anything to offer anybody else. I know that when I'm stressed, when I'm lacking margin, I'm no good to my kids or my wife. I know that I am just a grumpy person that nobody wants to be around, and I need to get away and get that margin back so that I have something to give them at the end of the day. So that's the balance that this idea of margin gives us. We're not pampering ourselves for our own sake because we're all that matters. We're taking care of ourselves so that we have something left to give in love to those who are most important to us, including and most importantly to God. Right? So the question of how do we focus our lives on what's more important, the strategy of building margin in our lives that this book offers is a great start. Dr. Swenson's book is really eye-opening to me. He does a great job of challenging our assumptions that our time and our energy are beyond our control. He also gives us some very useful strategies for building margin in our lives and overcoming overload. So this isn't just a book of concept, it's a book of strategy, which is why I really love it. So I highly recommend this one. It really was a game changer for me. It got me started on this path of talking about the entryway, talking about prudence, and trying to figure out in my own life how I can get stuff done and still be a father and a husband and still work on my relationship with God. Again, putting it into practice, still working on it, but getting it into my head, this book was a great start for me, and it can be a great start for you if you're interested, and we will build on these concepts as we move forward. So if you are too freaked out about me sending you to the actual book page, if you want to come back later, the bookstore's web address again is mycatholicbooksandmedia.com. Anything you buy from there goes to support the ongoing work from the Abbey, of building the courses and creating this webcast and all that good stuff. So your support is very, very much appreciated. Now, the other resource that I want to share with you is a nifty service called Unroll Me. And this is a free service. It's not for sale, but it's something that I think can really be of help to some people, and it really is something that helped me. Now I'm going to actually share my screen and show you my Unroll Me account as I explain this. Put this out here. There it is. Okay, so this resource is for you if you tend to subscribe to people who send you recurring emails, like from the Abbey. So if you subscribe to My Inner Abbey, you are on a subscription list, on a mail list, and you get periodic emails. And on my from the Abbey.com list, it's just emails about the webcast. But I have other lists as well that you may or may not be on, like a newsletter. And when I create courses, I email my list. Okay, and if you are subscribed to a number of those kinds of services, people who send you emails regularly, like newsletters and things like that, this is a great way to keep the clutter out of your inbox, your email inbox. Now, here's the other caveat here, or the qualification for this one. You have to have an online email system like Google or Yahoo. Now, it may also work if you have an ISP email service. In other words, you get your email through your internet service provider. So if you have like Telecom, or if you have Frontier.com or Verizon or any of those, this might work if you have access to your web mail. If you can access that not just through Outlook or another email client, but through the internet, it might work for you as well. I'm not positive about that, though. It'd be worth a try. So what Unroll Me does is it scans your inbox for these subscriptions. And if you take a look at my box here, you see that I have an incredibly ridiculous number of subscriptions. And I didn't even realize how many of these I had until I did Unroll Me. Now, this might be what yours looks like too. It depends on how obsessed you are. But if you notice, a lot of these have repetition. So Buy Safe is on here twice. That's a service that I purchased. So they send me customer service emails, and they send me general bulletins. So I'm on two lists, but the same company. You might have noticed here as I was scrolling down, Jeff Herring, he's one of my mentors. And he uses a different email, I don't even know what you call these. He sends from different email addresses, and he must have some service that creates these for him, because every time I receive something for him, it's from Jeff Herring ... So each of those gets listed here as a subscription. Okay, so that's the first thing it does is it just shows you what you're subscribed to. But more importantly than that, it also gives you control over your inbox. So I don't get you dizzy going back and forth here. I want to find the right one. Okay, so you have three options when you come to your manage your subscriptions. First option is to do nothing, and if you do nothing, you simply continue to get the emails at the same rate that you were. So your inbox will not change. You can also, though, unsubscribe. Okay, so this person, I don't even really know who this is, and this person is somebody who sends nothing but marketing emails. So I'm going to unsubscribe. Now you can do this at the bottom of most emails, because email clients like Infusionsoft and Aweber, these are things that the programs that marketers use to send out emails, they require it now, because otherwise it's against the law, basically. It's a spam law that you have to have the option to unsubscribe. But sometimes when you get to the unsubscribe page, you have to go through like a whole circus act to get yourself unsubscribed. Not with Unroll Me. Unroll Me, you just click unsubscribe. Boom, boom, they're gone. Okay, so that's the second option. The third option is find what I want to do this with. Okay, Brendan Hindle is somebody from a company that talks about how to do this well, how to give good webinars and make things interactive and that kind of thing. So I don't want to unsubscribe from him, but I don't want every single email he sends to be distracting me during the day. You know, I'm trying to work and trying to be productive, and as most people do, I get distracted by the inbox. So I'm going to instead add him to, actually I'm going to do Brad Martineau too. I'm going to add him to Rollup. Okay, so this is not unsubscribing for them. Instead, what this is doing is adding them to a digest called a Rollup. Now, if I go to the Rollup, this is something that is sent once a day. Okay, so instead of getting all of these emails ding, ding, ding throughout the day, once a day. For me, I think I asked it to do it in the afternoon. Instead, it gives it to me in the morning. Doesn't really matter to me, though. I find it once a day, and I go through and see. I can see who it's from. I can see the subject line. I get a little preview here, and I can say, okay, do I want to read this or not? You know, Father Barron's Water and Fire. Yeah, I want to read that. Let me see what this is about. So I can click on that, and it brings up the email in a little shadow box. I can get a closer preview. You know, if I want to actually watch the video, I can click on that. It'll take me out to watch the video. So I can do this all at once. The idea is that you don't have constant interruptions to your day. You have control over your inbox. So this is an awesome little service. You can get your roll-up by email. It comes once a day, or you can just go to unroll.me, and you can go like I did here and go right to your roll-up, right? So all of those emails come together as one. I love it. It really has reduced the number of emails. My wife made the comment, "Oh, you're getting an email a minute." And I was. It was absolutely ridiculous. Now, because of Unroll Me, most days I get, the only emails I get besides Unroll Me are maybe 4 emails plus whatever customer service emails I get, you know, people asking for help. And so my day can be a lot more focused. So again, this is at unroll.me. Unroll.me. And let me put that back up so you can see it. Oh, Michelle, I just saw your chat. Sorry, I was focusing on my screen share. Oh, okay, and Jody, I just saw your note to me as well. Okay, so first of all, for the book, if you did not receive the little pop-up or the tab that I opened for you, you might have a pop-up blocker blocking that. So look on the top of your web browser, and you might need to allow pop-ups for Webinar Jam, probably is what it'll say. And don't worry, that will not allow all pop-ups. Again, that will just allow pop-ups from this webinar service. So then you can see those pages that I send to you. And then Michelle said something froze up, and she said, whoops, I must have hit the pause button. This is what's kind of cool about Google Hangouts. They record the program as it's happening, and it's kind of like a DVR. So this is good for you to know. Let's say that I'm talking and talking and talking, and you really have to go take care of a family member or go use the restroom. You know, if you don't want to wait for me to give you a break to do that, you can push pause, and then you can come back and push play, and you won't be real time anymore, but you can always catch up to where we are. So you can rewind. It's just like a DVR. It's recording as you go, and you can go anywhere you want on the recording. But do keep in mind that if you do that, you won't be with me in real time. So when I ask for comments on the chat or anything like that, you'll be a bit behind. But you can always take that slider bar on the bottom of the video and go all the way to the right as far as it'll go, and then let go, and it'll get you back to the live point where we are right now. Okay, so that's good for you to know as well. Thank you for that feedback. I appreciate that. Those are some of the crazy things that can happen doing a webinar. And might as well take this opportunity to pause once again to see if anybody has any questions or recommendations for me. Let me know if you found our strategies at all helpful. Keep in mind that it is just a beginner level, but that we will get more into it as we go. But if you didn't find them at all helpful, let me know that, because I truly want to know what is helpful and beneficial to you. So I'll pause here and give you a chance to write any questions or comments in the chat. And then we will close up for the day. A little bit over time today, but that's okay. Won't be too long. At the end. Okay, and again, I will keep an eye on the chat this time for any comments that come in. But I think that's all that we have for this week. Let's close off this episode. And I want to close off this episode by letting you know about our sponsor. My Inner Abbey is brought to you this week, as it was last week, by the Keys to Spiritual Growth. And I'm going to do another bit of Google Hangout magic here. And you should see the Keys of Spiritual Growth offer come up on the right side where the chat is. And if you just click on that button, it'll take you to a sign-up form for this free video mini course. Now, if you are interested in that, the Planning for Grace course that's coming up on prudence and conquering chaos, this is really a great starting point while we wait for that course to roll. This course unfortunately is not up yet, though. It's recorded. I just need to do the post-production. This is kind of my experimental course where I'm learning a lot about video production, but the final course is going to be awesome. It really is going to be a great little course. It will be free, and what it does is it introduces you to all of the rooms of your Inner Abbey. And it does it in the same way as a webcast, giving you practical strategies to get started on each room. So that is going to be available if you register now, you'll get on the early bird list for that, so that you'll be notified when it does become available. So I'm going to get that one finished first, and then when it becomes available, then you can keep your ears out for Planning for Grace. So hit that button right now and get on the notification list, and I'll tell you as soon as it's available. A reminder, if you've not done so, to please register for the My Inner Abbey webcast updates at my-inner-abbey.com. And I'm going to put that in that same place that the bookstore was on. So if you have your pop-up blocker fixed this time, you should get a little pop-up telling you that, taking you to that page. In case you're not registered, if you're registered already, if you're receiving emails about this, you're registered, you don't have to worry about that. But if we have anybody who is on that is not registered, that would be a great thing to do to get email updates. If you are listening to this recorded, you're not going to receive that little pop-up. My-inner-abbey.com. Also, be sure to like the Facebook page at facebook.com/FromTheAbbey, or join in the discussion at Google Plus community called My Inner Abbey. And again, you find that just by searching in the Google Plus community for that phrase, My Inner Abbey. Barbara, the button, you should see like a little, it's in the pop-ins tab if it didn't come up automatically for you. And there's a button down at the bottom of that little banner that says, I'm interested. Awesome. Thank you, Barbara, for that comment. Anybody else having problems finding that Keys to Spiritual Growth course offer? Or did you not get the myinnerAbbey.com pop-up? Just want to make sure that's all working. And again, I'll keep an eye out on the chat for your comments as I go here, but we're going to close off today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next episode. This is Jeff Arrowwood, founder of the Catholic Educational Apostolate from the Abbey, encouraging you to rediscover the joy of learning and living your faith.